Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GRF Web TV program. We have a special event for today, and we're starting the program a little bit late in the afternoon today. But the big reason for that is effectively we have the various invitees that we have on the platform today. We shall be having conversation from and discussion with Professor Armoogum Parsuramen, who is the founder President of the Global Rainbow Foundation, Mauritius and India as well. He happens to be in Chennai right now. He would be joined, actually, he's in the office of our next guest and invitee, Advocate Prabhakaran, who is in Chennai, of course, and they will be intervening live from there. We're also joined by Professor T.M.N and Deepak, who's also our GRF ambassador. He's also from Chennai. He's also the president of the December 3 movement back in India. We have also our dear friend from Global Rainbow Foundation, Mr. Ridwan Dilmahomed, who's the director of the regional offices of Global Rainbow Foundation. In a little bit, we'll also be joined by advocate, lawyer Coomara Pyaneandee on the human rights basis. So as we all know, we celebrated the International Day with people for people with disabilities on the 3rd of December. Just to quote, we have from the United Nations, the theme for this year has been the transformative solutions for inclusive development, the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and equitable world. So disability inclusion is an essential condition to upholding human rights, sustainable development, peace and security. It is also central to the promise of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to leave no one behind, a theme that we all well know at the level of Global Rainbow Foundation. The commitment to realizing the rights of persons with disabilities is not only a matter of justice, it is an investment in a common future. The complex and interconnected crises facing humanity today, including the shocks resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine and other countries, a tipping point in climate change, all pose humanitarian challenges of an unprecedented nature, as well as threats to the global economy. Most often, in moments of crisis, people in vulnerable situations, such as persons with disabilities, are the most excluded and left behind. In line with the central premise of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development, to leave no one behind, it is crucial. I lay a lot of emphasis on this particular point. It is crucial for governments, public and private sectors to collaboratively find innovative solutions for and with persons with disabilities. So it's not only a case of finding solutions for them, but it is also a case of finding solutions along with them to make the world a more accessible and equitable place. So as I mentioned earlier, is that on the 3rd of December, we celebrated the International Day for people, for persons with disabilities. So I would like to set the tone by inviting Professor Armoogum Parsuramen to tell us a few words about the day and what importance that day has for him as the founder and president of the Global Rainbow Foundation, which is not locally only in Mauritius based today, but also in India, and also to tell us a little bit more about what is being done in Mauritius, or what is not being done, or what has been ongoing for so many years that we still lag behind in terms of a proper disability bill in Mauritius. Professor Parsuramen.
Thank you very much, Vijay and Keshini, for arranging this GRF Web TV program. I would like, first of all, to express my gratitude to our speakers. We have a very eminent speaker with us today, and I would like, therefore, to start by thanking respected advocate Prabhakaran, who is GRF Global Advocate for Disability Rights. And we're very honored to have him with Global Rainbow Foundation. And he's already helping us with our legal challenges with regards to the disability bill in Mauritius. And we have also another great advocate in India, in Tamil Nadu in particular, Professor Deepak, who is the president of the December 3 movement. And we have, well, I welcome Ridwan also. And we are looking forward to Advocate Coomara Pyaneandee to join us shortly. Well, we will also have a video message by the International Human Rights Advisor, Oliver Lewis, who was designated by A4ID, Advocates for International Development UK, to assist us in reviewing our draft bill. So he will listen to his message. So
yes, indeed.
I would like to also welcome the Mauritian audience to this web TV program, because the people have been very attentive. They've been following what we are doing. And this, I would say this program today is very critical, very important for us, for Global Rainbow Foundation, because it is held in the context of the December 3 celebration, the International Day of Person with Disability. And the focus will be on that. And we are looking forward to the intervention from Advocate Prabhakaran and Professor Deepak Nathan, who will give us the Indian, perspective, how India, and I always express my great admiration for India for having taken the lead as early as 2016 to bring its Rights of Person with Disability Act. This was a landmark initiative, and I commend Prime Minister Modi for backing that initiative, along with all the stakeholders who militated for it for many months and years. But at least he gave his sanction to it, and the bill, we have the act in India. And I must say my own experience looking at this act, or the Rights RPWD Act India 2016, I must say it contains a lot of very important provisions to accompany person with disability right from birth. Right from birth, they have a lot of scheme, for them to accompany them, to take them along in their life, in the journey, for education, for health, for employment, and so on and so on. And so that's one thing which is very important. And Mauritius, I would say right at the outset, must seek guidance and support from India to develop our disability bill. I'll come back to that later. Let me make some general observations before inviting Advocate Prabhakaran to speak. Well, in the context of for the December 3 movement, I must say, while I was in Chennai, I was invited by Professor Deepak Nathan, the December 3 movement president, where he had organized a medical camp in a remote region in Chennai. And that was something which was very touching for me. I could see the work he's doing, the way he's investing himself in serving those persons with disabilities there. It was a very touching moment for me. And that was, I really lived that moment, and it will stay memorable because it took me to the real people for whom we are going to work in India as well. So I'll come to the main issue, which we've been advocating for many months and years now, that the government of Mauritius, in this electoral manifesto in 2014, came for the election and promised to bring a disability bill. That in 2014, for me, an electoral manifesto is very solemn. It's sacred because this is on which you canvass the population to vote for you. And then in Parliament, in 2015, the President of the Republic, presenting the government program, came back and confirmed there will be a disability bill, and also there will be an amendment to the Constitution of Mauritius, Section 3 and 16, whereby discrimination against disability will be removed.
Is there any specific class discriminating disabilities?
It doesn't mention them. Alex, 3 and 16 is talk about discrimination against for various categories. But what was interesting, before 2008 or 10, I think, there was no provision for discrimination against women in the constitution. So the then government brought a special amendment to include women, So therefore the same thing which was promised in Parliament, that would do for disabled people. But this was promised, and up to now, we have not seen a piece of that legislation, disability bill, nor the amendment to the Constitution. So for me, it's fundamental. You know, if you have promised the population to give them that, you have to honor this promise. And we've been fighting for that. And Global Rainbow Foundation, what we did, in 2019, I took a pledge that since government is not coming forward with a bill, Global Rainbow Foundation will mobilize legal specialists in Mauritius and overseas, international, so that we can produce a draft bill. And we did. We did produce a draft bill. Which we released in 2021. Sorry?
2021 was the draft rights of person with disability bill? Yeah, that's the one.
Sorry. And this is a bill that we presented, we sent to the government, to everybody, and you will listen to Oliver Lewis, the human rights specialist, in his video message about his comments on the bill. He reviewed the bill for 2 months, a pro bono service to Global Rainbow, and this bill has been well received. And we've sent it to the minister concerned, to the Prime Minister, the government, the President of the Republic, all members of Parliament, all NGOs. This bill is available. And frankly, what I've been advised, it is ready to go, and government can then bring whatever changes they want, you know, but at least they have something which has been worked out. So, but up to now, we are very concerned that this has not happened. And the bill, government has not come forward. And on the 3rd of December, for the first time since 2014, the Prime Minister made a statement about the disability bill. He said, we hope the disability bill will come soon, but it's very complicated. We have a number of things to do before we can bring the bill to Parliament. For me, this is a no answer. You know, they have taken initiative to bring so many bills in Parliament. This one, which was a promise in the electoral manifesto, up to now, government has not been able to produce a draft. To be very honest, I'm concerned about this. I was expecting the Prime Minister and the Minister of Social Security on the December 3 movement, on the December 3 day, to come and state government will bring the legislation in either in this year or early next year. But give us an indication when. Or many other bills. Yes,
yeah.
Yes,
Professor Parsuramen, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but what would be the underlying issues you think that why the government has taken so long for not bringing, or at least for not coming up with the bill?
For me, it's political will. For political will, I don't want to lack of political will to do it, you know. And I will not comment too much on that. But the fact is, what the Prime Minister said on the 3rd, what the Minister said on the 3rd, are not for us, you know, reasonable comments on the bill, because it shows that they will still delay further. You know, because they're not ready. They have to consult. For 8 years, they've been consulting. And for me, this is unacceptable. And there I'm going to say, if India has done it in 2016, in view of the very close bilateral relationship between India and Mauritius, and our Prime Minister will be in India with Prime Minister Modi for G20. You know, all these countries have adopted the UNCRPD and they are implementing it, they've legislated. So I hope the Prime Minister will ask support from Prime Minister Modi so that Mauritius can benefit from technical support from India, so that we can get our bill ready very soon, and this should be presented to Parliament at the earliest possible. That's my wish and that's my prayer. So with these few words, let me now invite, I think it'd be good if we can listen to Oliver Lewis.
Yes, that's exactly the next step, Professor Parsuramen. Thank you very much for your intervention. Indeed, we're going to go at the short clip that we have for Mr. Oliver Lewis. I'll just share the screen and the message right now.
What I've done is received a very well put together draft bill a couple of months ago, and I've been working with the team just to try and improve it slightly, consolidate it, and so on. So we've had a couple of workshops with the team, but my my contribution has been vastly overstated. This is very much a homegrown piece of work by experts, including people with disabilities and their families in Mauritius, lawyers, policy experts, and so on. And so my contribution has been really very minor in comparison with all of you. I've learned a lot through reading the drafts and engaging with the team, and I came to the task with zero knowledge about Mauritius, unfortunately, and now I have a tiny bit of knowledge. I hope to be able to visit. I've been pressing that point later in the year to continue to support the work that's going on. And so any government being sent a document like this, which will be published on the 30th of June, should be incredibly impressed and incredibly grateful that civil society has produced a document of such breadth and depth, addressing the gap that exists in Mauritius between its commitment by ratifying the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the reality on the ground for children and adults with disabilities and their families and communities. And the gap has been analysed already by the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities 6 years ago in September 2015. And the committee produced its concluding observations, which we've taken into account and ensured that the draft bill addresses and makes progress on. So as previous speakers have said, what the draft bill intends to do is plug the gaps, to reverse the discrimination that people with disabilities and their families still experience in Mauritius. And it also seeks to integrate changes to other existing laws in a way that the Mauritian lawyers who have been involved have really ensured that, for example, the Equal Opportunities Act and the Training and Employment of Disabled Persons Act are amended via this bill to bring them into line with the basic requirements of the CRPD as well. So I know that we will be discussing the substantive elements of the bill, but as you can see, if you've had an opportunity to read it, it is incredibly comprehensive. It covers areas as diverse as access to transportation system and the information technology world, to, as has been mentioned, employment, inclusive education, legal capacity, the right to live in the community, and so on. And it also seeks to put in place some structural changes to ensure that the government of Mauritius coordinates policy across different ministries and with regional governmental organizations in the country, and that there is, pursuant to Article 33, paragraph 2 of the CRPD, that there's an independent monitoring body, so independent from the government, a monitoring body which seeks to promote and protect the rights of persons with disabilities and monitor the implementation of the convention, but also of this bill, hopefully when it's passed by Parliament. So in conclusion, I really look forward to continuing to help civil society as best I can. I congratulate everyone for the work that's been achieved so far, and I really support the call to action that's being made today by civil society in Mauritius, that the government should take this up and the government really has a head start because this bill has been drafted by civil society, which is fairly unusual. And of course, we're expecting that government makes amendments, makes some, as we say, tweaks to the bill. Of course, that's inevitable, but the will is there in civil society, and I hope that's very much matched by political will by those in power, so that progress can be made. So thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say at this stage.
My question, sir, and probably to Advocate Prabhakaran, is I'm sure he's had a look at the actual bill, which is with you, the draft bill that is there. Why do you think we cannot implement it, or it has not been implemented here? And what are the lessons we can learn from what India has done, and what we should also be doing from that perspective?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And we heard from Mr. Oliver in detail. And the initiative taken by the Global Rainbow Foundation and the visionary thoughts and the zealous effort of Dr. Parsuramen, especially a founder and the team, is really commendable. It's a laudable, I would say. Because when you talk about disability rights in perspective, disability rights are basically human rights. And if you talk about the various generation of rights, for example, in the most advanced civil societies like America, previously discrimination, the doctor also referred about the promise made by the Mauritian government in including the term disability as a sort of discrimination to bring an amendment in the constitution itself. It's really a remarkable thing, I would say, because if you take the generation of rights, previously the discrimination against blacks in America was considered to be one of the most disastrous, barbarous thing, inhuman one in the arc of human rights. But now, since the civil society and most people vociferously came forward and raised an unanimous objection, disapproval against the society, like especially people like Martin Luther King and a few other, many other prominent leaders, they gave a clarion call across the globe. The rights, and even now the Black Lives Matter, so many other things. So now things have taken a new U-turn. Now in American jurisprudence, what they say is that now discrimination against disabled is equal or worse than that of a discrimination against black men in particular. So that's how the contours of law, the dimension has taken new shape. It has got its own paradigm shift towards that, accelerating towards such a direction. Now, if you take in India also a debate which went on in the Supreme Court and disability rights, they say that disabled people, they cut across all vertical lines. For example, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion, and the disability might happen to anyone. And for example, it might happen by congenital defect at the time of birth, or by virtue of an accident, or especially during war times. Now, in America, like the war veterans, which they call it as, and by virtue of an accident. Now, with the advancement of the, because the people are skeptical, because the way the Prime Minister of Mauritius and the government and the Mauritius president, especially the government in particular, though they have made a promise to keep up in the election manifesto, which Dr. Armoogum Parsuramen considered to be a sacrament document, because that is a sanctity, the promise that you made before the people, before the election. I'm not sure it's whether it can be enforced in a court of law in Mauritius, according to your Mauritian jurisprudence. Let me also study on it and discuss on that aspect. And for example, if it is in India, recently a case went on in the Supreme Court, Indian Supreme Court, a concept like a freebies. It's a popular mandate, a promise made by the government before coming to power. A promise, electoral promise, they would say. They say that should be curtailed, curbed. The government argued that no, it is one of the measures initiated by the government to generate or to promote the welfare activities of the people. For example, the Indian Constitution has got two dimensions. One is fundamental rights. And if you talk about the fundamental rights, Article 14 of the Constitution, in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, talks about equality of men. Equality of men in the sense it includes men and women, or man in particular. And the creed of equality is something which is a paramount one. And everybody should be treated alike. Alike in the sense you cannot discriminate them. And Article 15 of the Constitution in particular talks about no discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Because me and Dr. Deepak, because when we were working on that area, even 15 years back, this thing was hovering or pondering in my mind. I was pondering that aspect as to why the Constitution amendment should not be brought in India to bring a discrimination on disabilities. And that thought has taken a leap forward, way forward in Mauritius government. Of course, I'll come back to the later course of conversation, later stage as to how it has not been brought into picture. Because when we talk about, as I say, disability rights, what the society and the world community, they have to look at it is not only a problem that continues to stirred in controversy, not controversy, I would say, stirred in the problem, only in the closed circle of a minority population. As I said, it may happen to anybody at any stage, any point of time. Nowadays, the old age is also a type of disability, like aging population. And more than that, with the enhancement of advanced technologies, usage of mobile, now the data have come in a shocking way that I read recently a scientific journal. It said that in another 20 years from now on, almost more than 20 to 30% of the population will lose their hearing capability because of the excessive use of technology and the headphones and so many other aspects. God willing, we do not know what's going to happen in the near future, but systematically, when you have a problem, it might occur naturally or accidentally at any point of time. So, irrespective of that, how the society or the government has to be more sensitive to that is that they should be more sensitive to issues like this. For example, I am really puzzles me, amuses me as to why the government has not taken the matter of utmost seriousness, because it's at the global level. And from the bill, I could see that already Mauritius government has signed made a declaration to implement UNCDRP.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, moment an Indian Constitution says, if you ratify international treaty, that becomes a part of your domestic law. I am not sure whether Mauritius Constitution has an analogous or similar provision. But you can see the implications of international law, that municipal law and the international law. Internationally, when you ratify a treaty or the president of the government of Mauritius government enters into a treaty, whether it is enforceable under your Mauritius Constitution, you can debate on that aspect. If that is the case, if the lack of political will continue to exist upon the government, in the last occasion I said the please pray petition, you can make a protest, you can make a, now December 3 is the day for the international event, and a petition could be presented. And I, in fact, with the organizing committee, the doctor can spearhead the moment to make a protest outside the parliament in Mauritius. If you want people from India or the global community also can be canvassed to that level to make a widespread protest, expressing your discontent, displeasure in making the government to come at a negotiating table at the quickest possible time, a sort of hunger strike or something like that. That is one aspect. Second, the judicial recourse, since the promise has been made already, if the promises are not enforced or effectively implemented by way of a law, legal enactment, because that remains a very critical document. What we say is that once when in India also there is still we are in that gray area, gray zone, because you have got, they have not amended the constitution yet. And disability rights has not been given the constitutional status. But what the government has done is that after a much prolonged battle and debate, after the Asia-Pacific declaration, where India agreed to implement the international mandate, they came out with the Person with Disabilities Act 1995. And after working that law for a large number of period, 2016, the present government came out with revising the disabilities, nature of disabilities. Initially, you got only 4 types of disabilities and 7 types of disabilities, in which preservation, for example, hearing impaired, visual impairment, and orthopedically disabled. Even now, the mental illness has not been considered in the broad spectrum. And now, with the advancement, certain disabilities were not included in the category. And now they have made the problem more complicated, because the law is very simple. If you got a disability in your body with more than 40%, you consider to be a disabled by getting a certificate from the government stating that a medical doctor prescribed a person is a disabled and is entitled for the certificate. This is the law, is very simple on it. Then even after getting the certificate, there are other double layers of discrimination or lack of protection on the part of the rights of the disabled. And now the present law talks about 21 types of disabilities. And now the countries like Canada, UK, where, for example, we have borrowed majority of the laws from UK, which is a common law system. And mixed to these fundamental rights have been basically borrowed from US, where fundamental rights are very strict in nature. And it's a basic one, which borrowed from American Constitution. But countries like the advanced countries, this lack of awareness, I would say, because the lack of implementation, if the government is not taking it very seriously, I think it's a disastrous one. In the sense, you don't say any proper reason to implement the rights of the person with the disabilities, especially in the global arena where there is an international gathering of momentum across the globe. And and also, if it's a type of violation of international rights too. And the majority of the people, they are annihilated to the core. And especially when educated, experienced leaders like Dr. Parsuramen made up the point, critical point, to the government in raising straight to their eyes, and remaining in a dead silence or closing their eyes, it becomes a huge surprise again. And so what I would say, emphasize is that, and there are 2 things. One, the actual enactment of a law. The next would be the implementation of the law. And implementation is a secondary part. At least there will be some checks and balances. In a counter majority regime, or once when you have a law in place, only you can at least talk or debate or discuss or deliberate or take the government or violators or the perpetrators of injustice to the court when there is a violation of the rights. Now, we also heard Oliver in extensive and who has got some excellent academic credentials, especially from Queen's School. And more than that, he has got a hand-on experience in fighting. I went through his profile shortly during the meeting, because first time doctor introduced to me about Mr. Oliver, and he has represented few cases in European Commission of Human Rights and some of this in the UK Supreme Court too. And so a lot of on the angle of discrimination. So when this is a mega Herculean task, like for example, to enact a bill in the country, to debate on it, now we have made the job much easier. Like a comparative study, I think the government should be more sensitive, or instead of this lackadaisical approach. In fact, I really wonder, after this process, they should have invited Dr. Armoogum on board straight away to that because he has been a minister by himself. He doesn't need any sort of additional introduction or recognition on the part of the government. But after this process, I think, very sorry to say, this is a sorry state of affairs. But the legal community in Mauritius will have one more brainstorming session with them. As to, there are 2 ways we can work it on this from my perspective, which I feel. One, already doctor has taken the initiative in bringing the terms to strike a chord with the government, in trying them or educating them to enact the law. But despite that, they are non-sensitive to the approach. I think doctors should immediately launch a hunger strike or protest in front of the Mauritius Parliament to put a pressure upon them, number one. Number two, again and again emphasize that, make it a critical point that there is no reason for the denial of justice to the person with the disabilities. And even after making a promise before the UNCDRP and making it before the elections, because already they have made a promise. I think if you are not complying with the promise, it's like you also continue to take oath in the name of the people in a democratic country. Yeah. And this is based on there could be a possibility that the people have voted them back to power only on such the promises made. Yes. And this it can't be unfulfilling or unempty promises for n number of days. And there is no reason even to deny for a single day. Now being the International Day for the Disability, and I think you should set a deadline within this month. You can announce it as an international year for month of the disability. Is coming to a close. You should set a deadline to the government. The time is coming close to them to close the chapter by the end of this year, so that productively or positively, when that when we enter into the new year, the new horizon, the new thoughts, and all the vibes, the government should immediately possible, and if not judiciarily, how to make it a point, and also all the civil societies or human rights forum or group in Mauritius can be garnered together as a single collective one, make it a mandate, because as a collectively, when a collective conscience or a voice is raised irrespective of the differences among the parties, I think this is one area, key critical area, where everybody has to be on a uniform table. I think, every people or every respective people within a respective places can meet the ministers and air their views and discontent on this issue, and not to keep it prolonging, pending even for a single minute, which is completely unjustified, unreasonable, and arbitrary, and highly illogical, and against the moral concerns of everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Advocate Prabhakaran. Thank you for all these enlightening points. I think it's the takeaway from whatever you've mentioned, and I think Professor Parsuramen also mentioned it earlier, is to continue to advocate for the disability bill to come in front, and of course we need to take on certain further action in terms of making it a must that this is something that of priority for the government to come in front of them. Thank you very much for that. Just for a few seconds, I would just welcome Advocate Coomara Pyaneandee is with us.
1 minute. I am not exaggerating.
Yeah, sure.
Matter of practical effect, I see him as a God-sent person for Mauritius people with the disabilities, and collective conscience in the name of God to help to make this elusive goal to become a reality. The rights of the person with the disabilities.
Absolutely.
So I think he need the effort that is really, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it. Absolutely. There's no question about it. That's the word. So I was just saying, I'll just take a few seconds to welcome Coomara Pyaneandee, Advocate Coomara Pyaneandee. Thank you for joining us. I know you've been with us and waiting with us as well.
Yes, hello. I'm very sorry to join you all guys quite late, but
not a problem, Coomara. Not a problem, Advocate Coomara.
Yeah.
We'll take you in a few seconds. Can I just please invite Professor Parsuramen again. What you mentioned about the December 3 movement, which Professor Deepak Nathan back in Chennai, back in Tamil Nadu, who is the president there, and you mentioned, Professor Parsuramen, that you wanted something similar to happen probably in Mauritius. Can you please tell us a little bit, and then we'll ask Professor Deepak to enlighten us about the whole idea of the December 3 movement as well, and how we could also probably join in.
Thank you, Vijay. I would like to welcome Advocate Coomara Pyaneandee. Coomara, welcome. We're very happy that you could join us.
Thank you very much indeed.
Bear with us for a few minutes, and then after you listen to Professor Deepak Nathan, the president of the December 3 movement, then you will intervene. And I'm sure you followed attentively the statement by Advocate Prabhakaran.
Yes,
right?
I did actually, very patiently I did.
I strongly advise you, Coomara.
Yeah.
The long thing you had promised to accompany me to India, you have to come now. You have to visit the office of Advocate Prabhakaran.
We'll take Oliver to Mauritius and then we go to India, all of us together.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Now, let me come back to the point. I was very impressed with the initiative of Professor Deepak Nathan, you know, to create the Decembercy movement. I've never heard of that before, right? So, but the idea of the Decembercy movement by itself crystallizes a lot of things, because this is the day, or International Day for Persons with Disability, which is very sacred for them. In fact, talking to Coomara Pyaneandee, I think he told me, this is our anniversary, our birthday, right?
Our New Year. Christmas.
New Year, you said, yeah, sorry, you said New Year. This is a New Year for a person with disability. And to tell you that Professor Deepak Nathan, who invited me as his main guest for the Decembercy event in Chennai, he went as far as cutting a cake on that occasion. And then he gave me such a warm welcome. I could see what he's been doing, you know, serving the people with disability there in a very honorable way. So I would, without further ado, I have told Professor Deepak that I would like to replicate this Decembercy movement in Mauritius, so that we will have a Mauritius Decembercy movement under the aegis of Global Rainbow Foundation. And this Decembercy movement in Mauritius will focus only, primarily, on getting the bill to Parliament and getting the act, get it enacted in Parliament. It's true we missed, I was expecting government to announce on December 3 that the bill is ready and will present it. They've taken 8 years not to do it. They got experts from European Union who came to Mauritius to help them. And I've advised them also to go to India, ask for expertise from India, you know, to prepare it. But so far, they have not produced the bill. So our Decembercy movement, which is inspired from the Decembercy movement of Professor Deepak Nathan, is officially launched today, I would say. And this will be the movement which will galvanize the population and all partners in Mauritius, including members of parliament, civil society, activists, and international partners and organizations towards achieving the objective of getting government to bring the legislation to parliament, right? This will be the motive, and we'll rely on Professor Deepak, who has wide experience in that, and supported by our luminary advocate, Prabhakaran, right? So we will be able to engage into this. So today is the beginning of a long series of action that will take place to get government to fulfill its promise, to honor its promise in 2014 and 2015. So on to you, Professor Deepak Nathan, about the Decembercy movement and how we can learn from India and also from your movement. And this will be our goal. Decembercy movement Mauritius should bring the bill to Parliament.
Thank you very much, Professor. And I'm sure that I'm amidst of two very important luminaries in the legal fraternity, and I'm not going to be at length when it comes to disability rights. And various things that I would like to put across is that the Decembercy movement that we have created is not a parent body in India. The parent body apparently happens to be from my leader, Mr. Chidambaranathan, who just passed away five years before, who is a person with disability, who started a kind of a confluence among the disability rights activists from the ground level, from the grassroots. And he made it into a big movement, and then we all started to travel along with it. Am I audible? Professor Parsuramen, am I audible? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the history about it. And we parted ways because we wanted a lot amount of attention to come over on the rights of the disabled people. And now we talk about the politics. Now, December 3 movement, what is its achievement? We are spread over 20 districts in Tamil Nadu, which is just like another association, but we do not call ourselves as an association. And I would like to call our association to be a political movement in Tamil Nadu. What we have achieved is, prior to December 3 movement, there were people talking about, all in derogatory terms in the political fraternity, in the public spaces, using phrases, words which are not acceptable to the mainstream, community. But now that has changed. That very important change has been brought by the voices of the disabled people, straight away hitting the political spaces in India, in the part of the country that I live in. I mean, that's a very significant change. The media advocacy that we have really brought out, with the help of, nevertheless, my very, very close friend, Mr. Prabhakaran, for a long time now, for the last 15 years, we are friends. And, every single stone that we have never left to chances, every single stone, I would probably be able to tell you, narrate stories right from 2007, where we started our journey at the start of a road, So that's how it started. And today, my dear friend, Mr. Parsuramen, you will be really astonished to, and the other friends of there, you will be astonished to know that because of December 3 movement, an election was cancelled because a disabled person was debarred to contest an election. That's something that we have changed. An election for the first time in the history of the country, in the history of India, was cancelled because a disabled person, a visually disabled person, was not allowed to contest an election. And all credits to Mr. Prabhakaran and to the disability movement in Tamil Nadu, we have amended a statute. I'm sure Mr. Prabhakaran will concur with me. We have amended two very significant acts, which were colonial in nature. Number one, the Municipal Administration Act, the Municipal Act of 1919, and the Panchayat Raj Act of 1993. These two laws were amended because out of which both the laws prevented one or other category of a disabled person to contest and run for office in India. Now that has been changed. That's something. Now in political spaces, no one dares to make a derogatory statement, not even utter a word which could go against the dignity of the disabled people in the place that we live. I mean, that's something that we have really. December 3 movement, the way it militated our conviction, our courage of conviction for the rights of persons with disabilities is something which is remarkable. Now, I'm not going to take much time, sir. I mean, there are so much to talk about, but I'm also curious to hear Mr. The other advocate gentleman who has just joined. Now, what we can learn from India? I mean, thanks to Professor Prabhakaran, who made some very important observations. But I do also have some observations which are quite important for Mauritius to take home. India enacted a government law in 1995, which was an outlook of, or probably the son or a daughter of a child lock between the Bilbao Millennium Framework and some governments, which happened in 1992 at China. Now, 1995 Act was the first act for the rights of disabled people, 1995. In 1992 at Beijing, from December 1 to 5, I'm sure you were in the United Nations, Professor Parsuramen. By that time, we had something called the Bilbao Millennium Framework. And further to that, we had a 1995 Act. Thanks to some of those activists in Delhi, they made a huge pressure. Now, what has eventually happened is the first law completed its journey in 2016. Now, the second statute in independent India. Now, what is the fallout? The fallout is simple. You have a law, but as Mr. Prabhakaran said, the implementation continues to be a big challenge for us. Hello?
Yes, yes, we are with you.
Yes, yes, we are with you. We are with you. Yes, yes.
Now, Mr. Prabhakaran will concur with me in all means that, implementation is still a challenge. The reason is, it is a top to bottom approach. Just because there was an international pressure, there is some kind of a change that we are able to bring at the law books. But eventually at the societal level, you seem to have a lot of misunderstandings even in this country, even in this great country which talks about so much of diversity. It talks about unity in the, among diversity, but unfortunately, it refuses to understand that disability is part of diversity. It refuses. But simultaneously, I do see there is a bottom to top approach in the spaces of sexual minority rights, gender rights, where there is an increased conscientization happening at different level by the media at the ground level. Eventually that rises up, and when there is a statute, even if it is a single member bill which got approved in the parliament, you have a lot of changes happening at the ground level. But if you compare that with the Disability Act and its changes, you have a long way to catch up. The kind of progression, the speed, the velocity at which changes happen to the last person in the last row of the last community is very fast. So the bottom to top approach is quite very important, is where I would understand, because the Supreme Court and the Honorable High Courts do pass a lot of judgments, but the judgments do stay in the paper. It doesn't come to reality. So, it makes the jobs of the disabled activists more difficult. No, I don't want, or probably we from India certainly do not want this to happen in Mauritius also. What we would probably try to do as part of December 3 movement is to probably politicize the Mauritian community in a much more, see, talking of rights, understanding of rights is different, different spectrum. And, speaking about the rights through a conscientized mechanization, through the politicization is quite very important, that it becomes a felt need for the society to have a statute. Now, if you're devoid of the felt need for a disability statute, I don't think that's going to have a big change, to percolate down to the last person in Mauritius. So I think we as a December 3 movement, probably December 3 movement is something like, it came up, the word itself came from the people. I think I would now like to recollect the famous talk of Aringer Anna, who was the former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, who said, go to people, be with them, build from what they have, understand them. That's how it is. We will have to go to the community, where I think community organization, there is one method called the community organization in professional social work. I think we must start using that as an important tool to conscientize, to politicize, make lots of stalwarts at the ground level to talk to the media, make the media more talk about, not from the charity aspect, give them a clear sense of perspective. I mean, that is something which is required in Mauritius, from my personal experience, from my understanding. There's a lot to go. And right now, I would like to wind up. I think 3 cheers will always be there with the disability community in Mauritius. We will certainly come there, sit with them, make them to speak about their politics. Comrade Lenin says this, Comrade Lenin, if you fail to talk about your rights or your politics, you will be ruled by the politics which you hate. This is the statement of Comrade Lenin. I think we must understand that. Let the disabled people talk about their politics. Let their politics come to the forefront. If only that comes, the politics of hate, the politics of discrimination, the politics of apathy will come to an end. Thank you very much, my dear friends and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Professor Nathan, Deepak Nathan. I would like to briefly confirm that you have an official invitation from Global Rainbow Foundation, and also in your capacity as Goodwill Ambassador for Global Rainbow Foundation, you have an invitation with some of your members to come to Mauritius, to come to share the experiences and also to contribute to this advocacy that we are doing to get the bill. So I will be very happy, and thank you for your very powerful statement. And together with Advocate Prabhakaran, now that I'm in India for some time, for family reason, I will spend more time in the advocate office, which is a library by itself, which is so I will do some groundwork here, and we'll look at how far we can move forward. So this is just the beginning of a series of webinars we are going to organize, in addition to going action on the ground. So we hope to organize a series of such conferences, with members of parliament in Mauritius, with other personalities, so that we can together create the momentum for the political understanding and support to this movement. So with these words, Vijay, you can move on to our friend Coomara Pyaneandee.
Yes, thank you, Professor Parsuramen. Thank you very much, Professor Deepak Nathan, as well, for these strong words and these inspiring stories as well. And as Professor Parsuramen said, that we officially also potentially have our December 3 movement for Mauritius from the point of Global Rainbow Foundation. So we will definitely come back to that in terms of what are the activities and the things that potentially we could be organizing. That one of the first things is eventually the invitation to the team to come down here. From taking the disability bill from a human rights perspective, I think Dr. Oliver Lewis mentioned that in his short video that we saw earlier. From the perspective of the Mauritian context, Maître Coomara Pyaneandee, how would you see the disability bill not being a reality today, and from a human rights angle as well? So, Advocate Coomara Pyaneandee.
Yes, can you all hear me? Hello again.
Yes, Coomara, if you don't mind, Coomara, excuse me, I would like to introduce you in the proper perspective to say that I've known you since you were a young student. You've grown up to become an eminent lawyer. You also moved to become the vice president of the UNCRPD committee, and you supported Global Rainbow Foundation all along. And we are very happy to have you with us, along with Advocate Prabhakaran, whom you should visit in India, and also Professor Nathan. So we are waiting to hear from you about this, the latest thing, the statement by the Prime Minister on the 3rd of December and the Minister of Social Security about the bill. Thank you.
Yes, I should say that I've been very...
You are one of the rare... Sorry, excuse me. You are one of the rare persons with disability who managed to become a mayor of the city of Cupid.
Yes, my hometown. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something.
Thank you very much for introducing me in such in such terms. In fact, it very much reflects what I've been doing. But let me say that I'm very inspired by Professor Deepak, who spoke to me previously. It was these days predating the drafting of a convention when I was shouting that human rights of persons with disabilities should triumph over utilitarian goals. That is, in other words, whatever it takes to make it happen, we needed to. So post-convention 2022, it was a really dark day on the 3rd of December here. Very dark in the sense that the Prime Minister was invited at this function organized by the Ministry of Social Security, and he uttered these words: "I'm now resigning from my promise to enact the disability bill, as it's coined, because In other words, he was saying that disabled people cost too much. The second thing that we saw on that day was that there were certain people who believe very much in the charitable model of disability, the archaic model, which I have been fighting for the past 30 years, who came to applaud that approach. And that room that they hired, they asked civil servants that they would give them a day off because it was Saturday, if they come on that Saturday, so that they could fill in the room, that hall. But fortunately for us, it was only 25% full. And that was live and direct on TV, on the national TV. The worst thing that equally happened on the same day, we learned that a disabled girl that has been supported by Global Rainbow Foundation, a young woman, I should say rather, her employment was terminated on the basis of disability, and the reason advanced were medical reason. And Professor Parsuramen phoned me immediately to ask me to pick the matter up, which I will certainly do. But what I want to say, at this stage is that that's where we need great international support from India, from the United Kingdom, everywhere else, is that we are living in a climate of dictatorship. I would not hide my feelings. It came to a point from 2018 up to date. I am not scared. I'm not scared for my physical integrity. I'm not scared for anything. But there are bizarre things that are happening in this country to restrict the freedom of speech, to prevent us from expressing our views, and especially when it relates to basic and fundamental rights. Today, it has come to a point that not only people with disabilities are being marginalized and discriminated, but everyone who speaks up against this regime. But coming back to disability and the political aspect of it, I fully endorsed the view that now we should and must perceive ourselves as disability rights movements together with other civil society movements as political movements. Not political movements in the sense that we are going to stand as candidates or run for parliaments and so on. Because at the end of the day, if you look at Article 29 of the convention, it talks about a lot about public participation in public life and participation. So I am very inclined to say that for that reality to happen, for the bill to become a reality, and not any kind of bill, but a bill with substance, a bill that can be reasonably implemented, a bill, an eventual act that give us a fairer and better deal, a bill that would allow people with disabilities to participate in the socio-economic, political and cultural development of this country, a bill that would equally show that there is an economic, social argument for it, because what is happening here, a lot of money is being wasted in the medical assessment of people with disabilities as opposed to improving their welfare, allowing them to participate in inclusive education. They don't even understand how much this country can gain. And that also has to be explained in terms of true inclusion in this society. So at the end of the day, what I tend to believe is that we are being governed by a group of stupid dictators who do not even understand the real reality of this country, its history, its sense of purpose, and its future. There is no vision. They are blind to the obvious. Not only, I mean, I can understand and empower people with psychosocial and intellectual disabilities, but honestly, this is a government that is mentally retarded. Oliver was talking earlier on how government should have reacted to such a piece of legislation where research has been carried out, where we as civil society put our energy together. And it is a great sense of patriotism fighting for equality. But unfortunately, we have a prime minister and a government in this country who still believes that discrimination is normal. Coining me as a lawyer in court as invalid is normal. All of that is normal, and it would go on like that unless we organize ourselves. And I think this 3rd of December movement, its replica in this country, will bring a lot of changes. I'm patiently waiting for Mr. Parsuramen to come back here so that we can brainstorm, recharge our batteries, because I think the 3rd of December should be a reflection of what we have achieved so far. We'll recharge the battery and prepare ourselves for the future. And I think next year is going to be a daunting year. Maybe Oliver would recall, that's where I draw a lot of my inspirations from. In the 90s, when I was a young lad at law school in London, I recall government was very reluctant in these days to bring about legislations for change. What we did was we organized ourselves in what was called a direct action group. We trained ourselves with buses. We organized peaceful protests. And here, peaceful protest is the solution because it is still part of Gandhi's land. And what we did, we forced changes. I don't know whether you would recall the 1997 election. The 1997 election, people with disabilities played a big role because we put forward the capacity and the ability of the casting of our vote. But even then, here in Mauritius, there's a lot of talk about general election being rigged. So I don't know whether it's going to be peaceful protests, how it would degenerate. And I don't know whether it's going to be even hunger strike. In a couple of weeks, we'll give you the update. But disability discrimination can't carry on. And also the final thing that I want to tell you, against all these things which are very negative, being a very positive person, being very realistic, I'm recharging my own batteries at the moment to write a book entitled A Blind Lawyer in the Jungle of Mauritius. The work has already started, and I hope if it can't change the mind of the mindless, at least it can shape the heart of the heartless. I end on this note. Waiting for your response and further questions if you have.
Yeah, thank you, Maitre Coomara. We know the battle and the various struggles you've been going personally, and the fight that you've been bringing on this front from a human rights perspective. I think we all know about that. Professor Parsuramen, how would you react to what Maitre Coomara just mentioned about the bringing the fight to on the local ground in Mauritius?
I totally agree with Maitre Coomara on this. In fact, he has my full support. I've been planning some activities also, and but the fact that I have to be in India for some weeks. Right. As soon as I get back, we'll meet with Coomara and all our parties. I must also say that I was very happy to see a statement from Mr. Maxime Labou, the head of the Father Labou from the Cathedral of Port-Louis, saying that a lot has been done, but a lot has to be done for the disabled people, and one is the law. I know he is supporting this initiative, right? So therefore, we will certainly galvanize all the local stakeholders on this, and Coomara will play a very key role there. But what I would like to say, Coomara, while I'm in India, I'm going to do some solid work with Advocate Prabhakaran and also with Professor Deepak Nathan. We'll be in touch with you, right? We are going to look at possibilities of taking legal action against the non-respect of the manifesto and the statement in Parliament, right? So I will get back to you. And if we'll need to work on that very seriously, I don't exclude the possibility for you to come over to Chennai, where we can work together with all these people here and build up a strong case, okay? And I'm happy also that you're going to write your book.
Can I have a word, Professor?
Yes, please. Yes, please, Deepak.
I think. Well, that's a beautiful idea that you have suggested. But I mean, see, the freedom struggle of India was not fought in the court alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has to be. I agree.
The freedom, it requires a legal intervention, but I think equally 50% we require to, go to the community in Mauritius and start speaking it up at that very, very ground level. Meeting at different places, making them as a, start a campaign on its own. I mean, at one end, there should be a legal pressure. Then the other end, there should be a political pressure. The civil society is political pressure. I mean, see, gone are days where the political parties take up lead. Now, these are the days where civil societies take lead and the politicians follow. Yeah. I mean, I think that also needs to be put in perspective, probably with some more civil society, a coalition to be made, a coalition of disabled people, a coalition of multi-stakeholders of the people. And I think there must be a statement. Probably I would suggest that myself and Mr. Prabhakaran must visit the ambassador of Mauritius in Delhi and give a memorandum at now and probably tell him that, as a neighboring country, as a close neighboring country, that this cannot be allowed, that, because, and also probably Mr. Kumar must also help us to understand whether the UPR process, the Universal Periodic Review of the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights, has started its procedures in Mauritius. When is it coming through?
Yes.
We need that.
I believe I have been invited to T.M.N, but I want to tell you something very important. You see, apartheid in South Africa would never have ended if there was no international pressure.
Absolutely.
And secondly, I need to tell you one thing which is very important. We need to be very rational in the way we brainstorm we need to strategize a lot, because you see, the thing is, government do not understand the socio-economic and cultural arguments for inclusion. And they still think of disability as costing money, when in fact we can contribute to economies and make economy work much better. So this is a very, very important aspect, I believe, for all countries of the world, and in particular in Mauritius. You see, because of our good human rights indicators in the past, there were a lot of investments coming in. But now our indicators are so bad internationally because of, a kind of dynasty politics in this country, and not in a legitimate manner. Things have badly changed, and there are international stations, press stations that have reported on it, including the BBC, French 24, and so on. But that's not enough. I believe if there are external forces, external from outside Mauritius, disability rights movements, not necessarily radical, but rather understand what we are doing. I believe that 3rd of December movement could take a big momentum. Lastly, I want to tell you something. Post-COVID, COVID is kind of a big excuse for government worldwide for the non-implementation of disability rights. And that's very, very important. We are doing it at the right time, in the right context, for the right reason. So we are bound to work together, not only India or part of India, but also we should be looking at places like Australia. We should be looking at places like Canada, and in particular the United Kingdom, where at the moment the cost of living is killing people. And the interesting thing about Oliver Lewis is that he got a very good track record with the European Court of Justice and the European Court on Human Rights. I think we just need to put our energy together.
We have Ridwan Dilmahomed, who is the regional director for our regional officer, of Global Rainbow Foundation. So I would invite him to say a few words about, because he has been involved in the write-up of the draft disability bill, along with Professor Parsuramen and the other people who were involved. So Ridwan, what was your experience, and what is your experience currently that you've brought up such a document and it is not yet something that is within the government, or it has not been implemented, or something that has not been implemented? Your views on that?
Okay, thank you, Vijay. Good evening, everybody. So, yes, why do we need a disability bill? Because, as mentioned earlier, we've signed and ratified the UN CRPD, so Mauritius has the obligation to bring a disability bill. But it is important also to have the constitution as well amended, especially section 16 about discrimination, because there's no mention of disability there in a particular section of section 16. So without this and without the disability bill, persons with disabilities don't have their fundamental rights respected. So we are in 2022 and we are still talking about fundamental human rights, which is something that it is difficult to understand. Because we've seen that Mauritius has evolved for the years, and we are still evolving in a charitable way, without viewing disability as a humanistic approach. And perhaps, so why the disability bill is important? Because persons with disabilities face lots of challenges in their daily living. Difficult to have access to education, and I'll mention about the deaf, because they are limited to only their primary education and don't have access to secondary education because they don't have sign language interpreters. So that is a major barrier for them in terms of their education. And also, I would like to mention that it is important. It has been highlighted that the bill is difficult for numerous reasons, be it financial or otherwise. But I think that as a first step, it is important to introduce the bill and then implement it in phases. And I'll raise a question. I've participated in a conference debate recently on the occasion of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and there was a question that was raised, and people that is, do we need like all laws pertaining to persons with disabilities be part of a single act, or do we have to divide them into categories? So perhaps in this way it will be easier to implement. So perhaps Coomara, Pyaneandee or others can contribute to that point. So we are advocating for the bill through different ways, different points that we are raising for that. But I think it's important also to have a sensitization at national level, and it starts with us, people who are advocating for persons with disabilities rights. It is up to us to sensitize our family, our community, and people that we know about the right terminology to use, about the different challenges PWDs face, and how we can contribute to that. And through these contributions, for these actions, we can all gather and all work towards advocate, and I'm sure the disability will come. So, and as Coomara also rightly mentioned, that with the bill, with the person with disabilities getting the right support, they will of course contribute to the economy through working and contribute to the economy of Mauritius by having the dignity and independence. And that is very fundamental, I think. So thank you, Bijay. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ridwan, for your views and your experience about the whole bill. So thank you very much, everyone. So before I close, I would invite Professor Parsuramen to say a few words with regards to the whole day for the person of disabilities that was just a few days back, and also just to summarize it a little bit in terms of the actions that we are looking forward to. So, Professor Parsuramen, we have approximately 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Vijay. My first sincere thanks to all the participants in our web TV program for today. I think this is, I would consider it a very important moment. And it is, for me, it's the launch of a series now of activities that we are going to organize online and on the field, on the ground, so that next year, because Parliament is on holiday now, so we don't expect them to do anything.
No.
But we will put pressure now, as from now onwards, mobilize the support of all parties concerned in Mauritius and also international, so that the bill should come to Parliament early next year. And we'll keep the pressure with a series of activities, right, that we are going to define, and so that we get the bill at latest next year, right, and at the earliest possible. So we'll come back, Vijay, with other activities that we are going to organize. Absolutely. So from today, I think it was a very, very, useful contribution that we got. A lot of thought-provoking ideas, a lot of suggestions for concrete action, and we have taken good note of all these actions. And I can assure our participants, our speakers, that Global Rainbow Foundation will take all these suggestions seriously, will work on them, and will take action as appropriate. So the work continues. I'm planning, Vijay, that we have a last one this year.
Yep.
Right, where we'll invite some other eminent people to join us, right? And so that we can keep on the momentum, and then we continue next year. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Parsuramen. Thank you, Advocate Prabhakaran. Thank you, Professor Deepak Nathan. Thank you, Coomara Pyaneandee. Thank you, my dear colleague, Ridwan, and also 𝐏𝐞𝐫𝐬𝐴, who has helped in terms of the technical aspect of the whole program. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a pleasure for me to host this program today for the Global Rainbow Foundation Web TV. So until next time, it's a goodbye and good night, and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.